Audrey Carter from Center, Kentucky. Second was entry number 14, shown by Broken Arrow Cattle Farms, Hanson, Kentucky, and first in Kentucky owned. We're now showing Class 11 early senior heifer calves.
Really a nice pair up here on top. Certainly some give and take, but I think it's just the carriage and the squareness of hip that goes ahead and gets this young lady's calf up to the top. No, she's not as attractive fronted and good through her chest as the one right behind her, but what she is just ultra complete. You know, when you set her down at the surface in motion, she's squarer and truer to the ground. She's looser and more agile at that hock and pastern when she goes, and probably her biggest advantage is at the stand and on the move, she's leveler from hooks to pins. Certainly the heifer in 2 has a touch more performance. Not only is she bigger now, I think she's going to be the bigger yearling. I like the way her neck comes out of the top side of her shoulder a little better. Young man's doing a really good job showing this heifer. Unfortunately, he's just got to stay on that loin a little bit. She just wants to duck her pins a little when she goes, maybe get a little more rigid on that rear pastern and outside of her stride when she goes. But boy, a good-looking, high-performing female that also has a really bright future. The young man that's going to come out next, I guess this heifer just ties in there into that spot pretty easily. You know, of the trio that's left out here, she's the high-performing one. She's got the most rib, you know, the most substance and bone. You know, when you set her in motion, you'd like to loosen her up a little compared to those 2 that go out in front of her. But still, a female that's got some doability, got some rib, got some natural go. Young lady coming out next is sure doing a super job. Heifer's green as the gourd, but she's long, she's sound. I do prefer her structure for the one that goes out over top of her. Unfortunately, she's a little more peaked in her top. She's a little flatter shaped when you get behind her, so she finds the 4-hole. Then the heifer that rounds out the class, you know, no slouch here. She's a moderate female that's got some doability. I guess she wants to just shuffle off of both ends of her structure a bit more. We'd like to just see a little more performance, a little more punch and go in that one to go ahead and trickle up any higher.
Thank you, sir. Results from class number 11, early senior heifer calves. Your winner, entry number 18, Madeline Effington, Danville, Kentucky, and first in Kentucky owned. Second was entry number 19, Owen Adams from Nicholasville, Kentucky, and second in Kentucky owned. Third was Monroe Carter from Center, Kentucky, entry 17. Fourth was entry 15, Anson Newcomb from Owenton, Kentucky. And fifth was entry number 16, Addison Mink from London, Kentucky. We're now showing division champion. We have, for our senior heifer calf, champion in reserve.
When we get these 2 falls out here to select your division champion, you know, I think they're both really nice, both excellent representatives from within their class. The dark red heifer we just looked at, you know, just fundamentally nice. You know, maybe not the extra bells and whistles, but certainly has the basics that are going to take her on down the line and make her a good, productive beef cow. The heifer that comes out of the first class, you know, as she said, she's the first one I saw so far. I saw her, said, you know, it's going to take a pretty good one to raise the bar in this group, and I still agree with that. That one has the aesthetics. She has the balance. She has the extra bells and whistles that the heifer behind her doesn't have. Easy winner here. Congratulations, young lady. She's going to be your division champion.
Congratulations, division champion out of class number 10, entry number 13, shown by Audrey Carter from Center, Kentucky. Congratulations. We need Broken Arrows, entry 14 in, please.
When we pull the second heifer in, you know, no slouch. You have to appreciate this one for the dimensions she possesses behind. She's got some bone, she's got some balance, but maybe runs out of just look and shape compared to the one right behind her. We're going to go ahead and stick with that other class winner for your reserve division. Nice pair to lead off this first division.
Congratulations, your reserve champion in this division. Entry number 18, Madeline Effington, Danville, Kentucky. Congratulations.
Just a single entry here in your May class. And young man's got a heifer certainly deserving of a blue ribbon. You just study her in terms of her lines, in terms of her squareness of hip and levelness down her top line. You like her a great deal. She's also an attractive fronted female. She's lean in terms of her composition. You like that about her, but almost to a detriment. You know, she gets a little more shotgun through that center body, if you will. Maybe a little rigid in terms of the way she gets off both ends of her skeleton, but certainly a lean, fresh one to go ahead and win this class.
Congratulations, entry 14, late summer yearling, your winner, entry 23, shown by Braxton Brooks, Buffalo, Kentucky, also first in Kentucky owned.
Just a single entry for this young man, but I actually like this one a great deal. You know, maybe a little lethargic as she came in here in terms of getting out and going, but when she does get going, she's very good structured. I love her bone work. I love her feet. You know, she's probably every bit as moderate as I'd like to make an April yearling, but she puts herself together really well. I like her head. I like the way her neck ties into the top of her shoulder. I particularly like the way she gets out and goes. Good heifer, young man. Look forward to seeing her back out here.
Congratulations. Results from Class 18, April Junior Yearling Heifers. Your winner was entry number 28, Anson Newcomb from Owenton, Kentucky.
Just a single entry March heifer, and again, young lady doing a super job getting this heifer presented. You really have to like the power and the dimension in this heifer, really overwhelming in terms of her foot, in terms of her bone work, in terms of how shapely she is, and robust in terms of that rib shape. You know, on the other side of the coin, maybe she gets just a touch crusty neck from me, maybe just a little bit jammed up in her front end when you ask her to get out and go, but certainly has some major traits to offer for this young lady's breeding program. Going to be a real nice breeding piece.
Thank you, Judge Mullinax. Results of Class 20, Junior Yearling Heifers, early Junior Yearling Heifers. Your winner, entry number 32, shown by Audrey Carter, Center, Kentucky.
Just a single entry here, but a female with a lot of doability. You know, you really have to appreciate this one. I'm sure if you turn this one out on grass, she's going to be a low-maintenance, moderate cow prospect for this young man. You know, maybe in the show ring today, we'd like to peel a little bit of this bark off her, maybe just lean her up a bit, but you can't deny the natural doability. The rib shape this one has gets around on a relatively sound base. Look forward to seeing her back out here.
Congratulations. Results on Class 21, early Junior Yearling Heifers. Your winner, entry number 34, exhibited by Caden Kephart from Pleasureville, Kentucky, and first in Kentucky owned. Division champion time.
Again, a really nice trio out of here, starting with the heifer that just won the last class. You know, when you get her out with this other pair, you know, maybe she's not as attractive up through that front end. You know, maybe just not that show ring look, but you do appreciate her durability. She's going to go out and be a really low-maintenance cow. The heifer that's right in front of her, you know, this is the power-packed one of the group. Big bone, stout, thick-ended, big top, bold sprung. You know, maybe in certain respects a little too much because she doesn't handle herself quite as good at the ground, maybe gets a touch crusty necked, if you will. Then the heifer that comes out of the first class, you know, condition-wise, I like this one the best. She comes to me in what's the best rig because she naturally has some rib shape. She has some doability. Then when you ask her to set in motion, she's the most flexible, the soundest at the ground. You know, the only unsoundness I'm concerned about her, she's a little cloudy in that left eye, but she sees fine. She's going to get along just fine. I think there's enough quality, enough attributes, enough of an advantage in soundness and just elegance and freshness this heifer needs to win the division. She's going to be your champion. The heifer right behind her is going to be reserve.
Congratulations. Your division champion is out of Class 18, entry 28, Anson Newcomb from Owenton, Kentucky. Your reserve division champion out of Class 20, entry 32, shown by Audrey Carter, Center, Kentucky. Congratulations. We're now ready for Class 24 in the ring, late senior yearling heifers.
Just a single entry, November senior yearling, and a female that's doing the things she's supposed to do. It looks like she's got a really good shape udder coming down. She's one that's moderate, got some doability, has some skeletal width. You know, might just peel a nickel of bark off of her to be ideal, but certainly a female that's doing a lot of things she needs to do to be productive within this beef industry.
Congratulations. For Class 24, your winner, entry 37, Madeline Ethington, Danville, Kentucky, first in Kentucky owned.
Really a nice pair of senior yearlings out here. I think it's just elegance and structure that's going to go ahead and sort that pair. You know, you start at the tip of this one's nose and work down into the point of her shoulder. I think that's where you see the biggest difference. This heifer's more up-headed. You know, I'll call it a wash in terms of body composition, but I think this heifer is so much better structured, just better in her carriage in that top line. I like the way that scapula fits into the top of her neck a little better. You know, if I'm going to get nitpicky on this one, not exactly hammer-legged when she plants it, but she's very flexible and sound, and maybe a little more concerning. I get under there. That udder's a little crowded, you know, both from the side and from behind. I try not to get ultra critical on these bred heifers because I've seen enough of them change. You know, I don't think it's going to be a disaster by any means. That the teat size is decent, but I would like to spread them out a little bit, see her a little higher and wider in that rear udder attachment at this juncture. The heifer in two, you gotta love the power and the dimension she possesses. You know, as stout and big-topped and bold-sprung as any we've seen all day. Big old foot on her, really gets off good on that hind leg. I guess to me, when you study her through that front 1/3, gets a little crest to your neck, maybe gets a touch round-shouldered, just wants to struggle a little more, maybe open up through that chest floor as she goes. But really a good pair. Look forward to seeing them back out here.
Thank you, Judge Mullinax. Results of class number 25, Red Angus, early senior yearling heifers. Your winner, entry 38, shown by Michaela Massey from London, Kentucky. And second was entry number 39, Audrey Carter from Center, Kentucky. Now showing for senior champion division female.
As we get out here to select between this trio of senior yearlings, you know, my kudos to the exhibitors and to the breeders. These are stout, production-oriented cattle that are going to go out and be assets to the beef business, regardless, you know, of how I place them today. These are the cattle that have the fundamentals, have the intangibles to go out and be productive for a long time. With that being said, the heifer that comes out of the first class, you love her performance. You love her levelness of hips. She's one that's sound. She's flexible when she gets on the move. Does she have quite as much power as a few of these behind her? Probably not. And, you know, I might like to rebalance her from the side a little bit. You know, probably the deepest part of her body is her chest floor. You know, and that's okay in the real world because that's going to keep her in shape most of her life. But from an aesthetic standpoint, we'd like to change that a bit compared to the two behind her. The heifer that comes out of the second class, we love this one on the move. Just so elegant about her head and her neck, good in terms of her structure, good in terms of her rib. You know, we discussed her udder, you know, not super concerning to me at this standpoint. I just think there's so many good things about this heifer. She needs to win this division. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Your winner of this particular division comes out of class 25, entry number 38, shown by Michaela Massey from London, Kentucky. That brings in entry 39, Audrey Carter.
You know, I think it gets a little closer here for reserve. You get into this pair of heifers. There's certainly contrasting types. You know, the heifer up front, again, as we discussed, we love her length, we love her performance, we love her levelness of hip. The heifer behind her, we love her bone, we love her power, we love her three-dimensional shape. You know, I think those are attributes that are a little harder. And for the amount of power and the dimension she possesses, still gets around on a relatively good base. I think this one's a little more of an outlier in terms of her quality traits. I really see this one in the future, you know, being a herd bull mama when it comes down to it. Really good pair of females. We're going to stick with a little more power. We're going to go with the second place heifer from that division, from that class.
Congratulations. Reserve division champion is entry number 39, shown by Audrey Carter, Center, Kentucky. Congratulations. We're ready to show for Grand Champion Heifer in the Red Angus show. Grand Champion Heifer will be next.
All right, what a good lineup we got out here. You know, not long on numbers, but I think fundamental quality, we're really long on out here. You know, I always love sorting Red Angus. You know, you're a true purebred. You have the ability to offer heterosis. That's a word I learned very young. I grew up in a feedlot, and I knew the value. We had mostly black baldies, but I knew the value of a purebred, and I know the value of a heterosis. And I'm telling you what, this is not a time in the beef business to let that be lost, because that's 20%, that's free money, and you guys have the ability to offer it. You know, we have a lot of so-called breeds out there that have given up that heterosis in terms of turning black and doing a lot of other things, and in so doing, they've lost their identity. I don't think these red cattle have lost their identity. They're low maintenance, they're high in terms of reproductive efficiency, they're good in terms of marbling, they're cattle that can go out and function and do things in the real world. And let me tell you, the real world cattle business has never been any better. You know, so don't get lost in the fight of these top fives and everything else and lose your identity. I encourage you, because you're raising really, really good cattle, and it's sometimes hard when you're dealing with a small window of genetics that you have to improve your purebreds, but keep doing it. Keep doing it, because you have value in the real world, and it's going to show up. It's going to show up for a long time. With that being said, you know, it's a really nice group of heifers, starting with the one we just looked at. I think she's sure in the thick of the hunt here. She's getting onto that production stage. She's sound. She's functional. She comes to us in a nice rig. She's square hipped. She's still elegant in that front end and acceptable on the move. Therefore, she's a factor out in this drive. Young man that comes out of the April class right prior to her, you know, the more you study this one, the more you like her. Her basics are very good. She's very good in terms of her bone. She's green as a gourd, but you know, you get in behind her, those pins are big. She's got shape to her. You know, if you put another 150 pounds on her and put the same type of back fat a few of these others have, I think you'd be really impressed because I think she has the build and the characteristics to hold it, and therefore I also think she's a big factor out here. The heifer that comes out of the second class, you know, second division, only one in the division. You like her aesthetics, you like her look, you like her length, you like her squareness. You know, you'd like to redesign her underneath. Maybe give her a little more rib, but more than anything, you'd just like to change that structure. Maybe give her a little more doability like the other ones on either side of her possess. You know, and then the heifer that comes out of the first class, I didn't look at her much out here. I didn't need to. You know, I said when she walked in, the bar's pretty high, guys. Gonna have to have an awful good one to beat her, and I haven't seen one yet. Congratulations. This is your champion.
Congratulations. Out of Class 10 is your grand champion female, entry number 13, shown by Audrey Carter from Center, Kentucky. Congratulations. Brings in Broken Arrow, entry 14. Congratulations. Entry number 28 is your reserve grand champion. Out of Class 18, Anson Newcomb, Owenton, Kentucky. Congratulations to Anson Newcomb, your reserve. And your champion, Audrey Carter, out of entry 13 out of class number 10. We're now ready for bulls. As we start the bull show and conclude our Red Angus show here, again, I'd like to introduce our judge, Randy Mullinex from Toulon, Illinois, graduate member of the national champion livestock judging team at Black Hawk East Junior College and the K-State Senior College. He owns and operates Purple Rain Cattle, Company, a purebred Hereford seed stock operation. They've been blessed with numerous national champions and been named premier breeder at national events about 50 times. Randy's judged in 40 states, both nationally and at junior national events, and is in over a dozen breeds. So he's well qualified. We're very honored to have him here on the Green Chevy's Kentucky State Fair, Randy Mullinex.
You know, just a single entry, but this one could stand some heat. You know, I've looked at enough red Angus to know that when you have one's neck ties into the top of her shoulder that good, and he can still get off on his hind legs square and true, you got something to build around there. Good performance in this guy, good levelness of hip, tremendous length of body, tremendous length of hip in particular. Really like this one. Look forward to seeing him back.
Congratulations. Entry number 44 out of Class 31 Junior Bull Calves, exhibited by Madeline Effington, Danville, Kentucky, and first in Kentucky owned.
Just a single entry, but what a nice beef bull. Just super, super sound, big-footed, big-bellied type of guy. Gets around on a really athletic base. He's good-headed. You know, maybe just a quarter twist to his testicle. You might square that up just a little bit. And, you know, I don't know how much time he's spent breeding cows, but in an ideal world, you might just harden him up just a little bit. But, boy, that's being nitpicky on just an awfully good bull that has some awfully good fundamentals to him. Look forward to seeing him back out here. Good bull.
Thank you, Judge Mullinex. Your winner in Class 47 Senior Yearling Bulls is entry number 54, shown by Leon Cattle Company, St. Clairsville, Ohio. We're now showing for Grand Champion Red Angus Bull here at the Kentucky State Fair.
Just two entries here, but certainly two herd bulls that could work anywhere in the country. You know, this bull that wins the first division, you just love his balance. You love his length. You love his length of hip. When he gets out and goes, he's good off that hind wheel. Love the way his neck sits on the top side of his shoulder. You know, if you're going to get nitpicky on this guy, you'd like to lay back that angle of his shoulder. You know, just wants to struggle a little bit as he gets trucking out of that front end. But that's getting nitpicky on a very good bull with a great performance and a good look. You know, the big bull, this guy's just hard to deny. You know, you bring one out to a state fair like this, so good at the ground, big round foot on him. Guy is flexible, he's athletic, he's good ribbed, he's got a lot of doability. You know, as we discussed, slightly twisted testicles, but man, you just can't deny a big 2-year-old bull like this at a state fair. He's going to be your champion. The young bull calf's going to be your reserve.
Thank you, sir. Congratulations. Your grand champion bull, Kentucky State Fair Red Angus Show, is exhibited by Leon Cattle Company from St. Clairsville, Ohio. Congratulations. Your reserve grand bull, entry number 44, exhibited by Madeline Effington, Danville, Kentucky. Again, congratulations to our Red Angus exhibitors, and congratulations to the champions. Thank you, Judge Randy Mullinex, for your evaluation of our Red Angus cattle today.